Have you ever wondered what truly terrifies a narcissist? You might imagine it's the loss of admiration or control, but there's something much deeper, much more profound. The truth about a narcissist's worst nightmare is something many don't see coming, and once you do, it might just change the way you view these individuals forever. Psychologically speaking, narcissists thrive on validation, admiration, and the power they hold over others. They carefully curate their lives to maintain an image of superiority. But behind this mask lies a fear they can't easily control, a fear of exposure, vulnerability, and perhaps the greatest fear of all, being seen for who they truly are. In today's video, we'll dive into the shocking truth about the one thing that strikes terror into the heart of a narcissist. By the end, you'll understand what really drives their behavior, why they fear certain truths, and how these fears shape their interactions with the world around them. Are you ready to uncover what lies beneath the surface? Let's get started. To understand the core of a narcissist's worst nightmare, we first need to examine their need for control. Psychologically, narcissists are driven by a desire to dominate their environment and maintain a sense of superiority. This need for control is not simply about power. It's about self-preservation. A narcissist's self-worth is fragile, built on an image that must be protected at all costs. They often see themselves as special and unique, deserving of admiration and attention. When that image is threatened, whether through criticism or exposure of their flaws, they experience a deep sense of vulnerability. For narcissists, control is their armor. It shields them from feelings of inadequacy and protects them from the anxiety that comes with self-doubt. But when they lose control, even momentarily, it can feel like their entire identity is crumbling. The idea of being exposed, having their true selves revealed, is terrifying because it would shatter the carefully constructed facade they've spent years building. The fear of losing control is not just about external circumstances. It's an internal battle. Narcissists fear that without their power and influence, they will cease to exist in the way they've come to believe is their true form. And this fear of exposure becomes their greatest vulnerability, one that they will go to great lengths to protect, often at the expense of others. One of the most profound fears that lies at the heart of a narcissist's psyche is the fear of being perceived as ordinary. To understand this fear, we must look at how a narcissist views themselves in the grand scheme of things. Narcissists typically view themselves as exceptional, unique, and often superior to others. In their mind, being ordinary is a fate worse than death. It means blending in, being unremarkable, and ultimately being insignificant. This fear stems from an internal belief that their value lies in standing out, in being better than others. When that image is threatened or challenged, they experience profound anxiety and insecurity. They rely on constant admiration and validation to reinforce their sense of self-worth. If they are seen as ordinary, it would imply that they do not possess the exceptional qualities they believe are central to their. This fear of ordinariness leads to behaviors designed to maintain their sense of superiority. They may exaggerate their achievements, belittle others, or seek out relationships where they can dominate and be admired. Every action they take is a calculated attempt to ensure that they are not seen as just another person in the crowd. The narcissist's fear of being ordinary can also manifest in their need to always be the center of attention. Whether it's through achievements, appearance, or manipulation, they will do anything to ensure they remain the focal point of conversations and interactions. The idea of fading into the background is terrifying to them as it undermines their carefully crafted sense of self. Narcissists are masters of creating a polished, perfect image of themselves, a mask that hides their vulnerabilities and flaws. This mask is often what others see, and it's carefully constructed to garner admiration, respect, and validation. It is the embodiment of their need to appear flawless, untouchable, and superior. However, beneath this mask lies a fragile ego, one that is highly sensitive to any form of criticism or imperfection. The cracks in the mask are the narcissist's worst nightmare. Any indication that they are not as perfect as they appear can send them into a state of panic. When someone exposes a flaw or a challenge in their image, whether intentional or not, it triggers a deep psychological response. The narcissist may react with rage, denial, or even withdrawal, unable to cope with the idea that they are not flawless. This fear of imperfection leads narcissists to go to extreme lengths to hide their true selves. They may constantly monitor their appearance, fabricate stories of success, or engage in manipulative behaviors to maintain the illusion of perfection. The pressure to uphold this image can be overwhelming, and when it begins to crack, the narcissist feels as though their entire world is falling apart. The fear of being exposed as imperfect is more than just a fear of judgment. It's a fear of self-dissolution. If their flaws become visible, they risk losing their sense of identity, which is built on the idea of being exceptional. The mask provides a shield that protects them from the painful reality of their own vulnerabilities. In the next chapter, we'll delve into how the narcissist's greatest fear, being exposed, drives them to create a world where their flaws are hidden at all costs, often manipulating relationships and environments to maintain control. A narcissist's greatest fear, one that keeps them awake at night, is emotional vulnerability. Unlike many people who experience vulnerability as a normal part of their human experience, a narcissist views it as a sign of weakness and a potential threat to their carefully curated persona. Vulnerability requires a level of openness and acceptance that narcissists simply cannot afford. To be vulnerable means to expose parts of themselves that are unpolished, raw, and imperfect, qualities that go against the very foundation of their self-image. For a narcissist, emotional exposure is dangerous because it invites the risk of being seen as flawed or weak, and in their minds this is unacceptable. The narcissist will often go to extreme lengths to avoid vulnerability. They may project an image of self-sufficiency, invulnerability, and control, masking any sign of emotional struggle. They will avoid deep emotional connections that could expose their true selves and may even sabotage relationships to maintain their emotional distance. The more they can avoid emotional exposure, the more they can keep the mask intact. What's particularly disturbing about this fear is that it also prevents narcissists from truly connecting with others. Their inability to embrace vulnerability creates an emotional barrier that isolates them from meaningful relationships, keeping them stuck in a cycle of superficial interactions and self-protection. Ironically, their fear of vulnerability often results in the very loneliness and isolation they dread the most. In the next chapter, we will explore how the narcissist's fear of vulnerability can manifest in destructive behavior, such as manipulation and emotional abuse, as they try to maintain control and avoid exposure at all costs. To prevent the exposure of their vulnerabilities, narcissists often turn to manipulation as a primary defense mechanism. This behavior is rooted in their deep fear of being seen for who they truly are, imperfect and flawed. Manipulation becomes a tool they use to control how others perceive them, ensuring that their mask remains intact and their vulnerabilities remain hidden. One of the most common manipulative tactics narcissists employ is gaslighting, convincing others that their perception of reality is wrong or distorted. By doing so, narcissists create an environment of doubt and confusion, making it difficult for their victims to trust their own instincts. This helps the narcissist maintain control over the narrative and avoid facing any truths that could reveal their flaws. Narcissists also use other forms of emotional manipulation, such as guilt tripping, playing the victim, or using praise and flattery to get what they want. These tactics allow them to manipulate others into maintaining their idealized image, while also preventing anyone from digging deeper into their true emotional state. Narcissists may convince others that they are too sensitive or too dramatic if they try to challenge the narcissist's behavior, further isolating them and preventing the narcissist from being held accountable. The more the narcissist manipulates, the more they reinforce their control over their environment and the people in it. But in doing so, they become even more trapped in their web of lies and deceit. Ultimately, their fear of exposure and vulnerability makes them increasingly reliant on manipulation, leading to toxic dynamics in their relationships. In the next chapter, we will discuss how narcissist manipulative behavior not only protects their fragile ego, but also creates an environment where trust and authenticity are nearly impossible to achieve, leading to damaging long-term effects on those around them. Chapter 6. The long-term impact on relationships and personal well-being. As narcissists manipulate and control their surroundings to shield their vulnerabilities, the impact on their relationships becomes undeniable. The constant need to maintain their facade, coupled with the manipulative behaviors they employ, often leads to a cycle of toxic interactions that ultimately harm not only those around them, but also the narcissists themselves. The relationships with narcissists are often marked by a lack of genuine emotional connection. Because narcissists avoid vulnerability and authentic intimacy, their interactions tend to be one-sided. They may use others for admiration, attention, or validation, but rarely provide the same in return. Those close to a narcissist often feel drained, confused, and unfulfilled as they struggle to meet the narcissist's constant need for validation while being denied the emotional reciprocity they deserve. For narcissists, this cycle can be equally damaging. Despite their outward confidence, their internal world is often fraught with insecurity, anxiety, and loneliness. The constant need to manipulate and maintain control creates a wall between them and others, leaving them with shallow, unfulfilling relationships. They may experience brief moments of admiration or adoration, but these are fleeting and never provide the lasting fulfillment they crave. In their quest for perfection and control, narcissists often find themselves isolated, unable to form deep, meaningful connections. Moreover, the fear of exposure and vulnerability can prevent narcissists from ever truly growing or healing. Their avoidance of emotional depth and their reliance on manipulation keep them stuck in a state of emotional immaturity. This stagnation can lead to a profound sense of dissatisfaction and inner emptiness as they continue to live in a world of carefully crafted illusions rather than confronting their real selves. Ultimately, the narcissist's worst nightmare is not just the exposure of their flaws, it is the realization that they cannot maintain their false image forever. Over time, the cracks in the facade will become more apparent and the relationships they've built will deteriorate. As their world crumbles, the narcissist is faced with the painful truth: their need for control, admiration, and perfection has only isolated them further. To recap, we've journeyed through the deep and often unsettling psychology behind a narcissist's worst nightmare. From their insatiable need for control to their fear of being ordinary, the emotional mask they wear, their avoidance of vulnerability, and their manipulation tactics, it becomes clear. Narcissists live in constant fear of being exposed for who they truly are, flawed and imperfect individuals, just like everyone else. This fear drives much of their behavior, pushing them to maintain control, manipulate others, and avoid emotional connection at all costs. But in doing so, they only isolate themselves further, creating a world where genuine relationships and personal growth are nearly impossible. The truth is, their worst nightmare is not just about losing admiration. It's about facing the uncomfortable reality of their own humanity. Understanding the inner workings of narcissism not only helps us navigate relationships with narcissists more effectively, but also offers us the opportunity for empathy and personal growth. For those affected by narcissistic behavior, recognizing these patterns can be a crucial step in healing and establishing healthier boundaries. For narcissists, confronting the truth of their vulnerabilities may be painful, but it is the first step toward authentic self-acceptance and emotional growth. If you find yourself caught in a cycle of narcissistic manipulation or struggling to understand someone with narcissistic traits, remember, it's never too late to seek change. Whether you're a victim or a narcissist yourself, the journey toward healing begins with the acknowledgement of these deep fears and the willingness to embrace vulnerability and authenticity. Only through self-awareness can we begin to break free from the chains of narcissism and build a life that values truth over perfection. Thank you for watching. If you found this video insightful, consider subscribing for more in-depth discussions on the psychology of human behavior. Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's continue the conversation on how we can all learn, grow, and heal together.